Good evening, everybody. Happy Thursday, having our little guest episode a day early. And as our guest this week, our first recurring guest, Carlos LosTalksPats. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. It's good to be back on. I really enjoyed the last time I was on. I really enjoyed watching the Mike Hadlick episode. That was by far one of my favorite podcast live streams I've ever watched. So yeah, I'm happy to be back on.
Oh, no SpongeBob talk today, which I know Zach is displeased about, but I, for one, am happy about that. Anyway, we have a packed show today. We're going to go through the GM candidates that the Patriots are starting to interview. A bunch of people are turning that down because it's very likely that Elliott Wolf will end up getting this job, as numerous media outlets have been reporting all offseason, basically. And then the draft is in. That happened 2 weeks ago. We're past that now. So rookie minicamp is this weekend. There's about 20 to 30 players who will be attending that rookie minicamp. All the draft picks will be there, and then about 15 to 20 undrafted free agents will be there. So kind of go through, talk about that, and then before you know it, training camp will be underway this summer. So kind of end the show with some roster battles to watch when training camp gets underway this summer.
Before we jump into the meat and potatoes of the show, I do have to make sure. Ben, did you brush up on your SpongeBob history?
So I watched like that 20-minute clip I posted to Twitter last Friday, and that's about it. But this will be like, it's been a busy week, but I will start watching SpongeBob.
All right, good. That'll be how we start our end of week episodes, is just making sure you're watching your daily dose of SpongeBob. But anyways, getting into it, starting off with the reports of the Patriots searching for their what was the official title? Was it executive vice president?
Yeah, executive vice president of football operations.
Yeah. So first of all, that was the report from Albert Breer that the Patriots are not searching for a GM, a general manager. They're searching for an executive vice president of football operations. Say that 10 times fast. Kraft is not really known for having a GM, a general manager, and so this doesn't really come as a surprise. But there are, as of right now, 3 potential candidates for this position, but in reality, it's probably one. It is probably Elliott Wolf. So, Carlos and Ben, what do you think about, I guess, this possibility and the future of the Patriots with more than likely Elliott Wolf as their lead executive?
Personally, I'm excited. I do think he earned the job. I think he deserves it. A lot of people might say otherwise, like what has he done so far? But if you just look at the stuff he did as soon as he got into power, as far as like re-signing everybody, he set the foundation for the at least next 4 or 5 years. And on top of that, he as of right now, on paper, it looks like a really good draft. I think one thing that really matters is also the way he really followed through on his word. he told everybody, hey, we're going to weaponize the offense. He tried to go get Calvin Ridley. They almost paid top dollar. They were what, like second in line? Since when does New England pay that much to a wide receiver as far as like the reported contract they gave him? So he held through on his word for that. And then even though it didn't work out, he went to the draft and drafted all but one offensive player. So he really followed through on that. He's telling us what he's going to do, and he does it. And on top of that, he sees and he knows what the issues are on the team. So I just think that he has earned it. As far as like the two other guys that they've interviewed for the position, obviously they've tried interviewing a lot of people. Many declined, but the two guys that have interviewed, I do think that they're also looking at them as far as other positions in the front office. So all reports point to Wolf being hired as the EVP of football operations, but don't be surprised if like Brandon Hunt, and I don't want to butcher the other candidate's name, but like what if they bring him in as like a salary cap, person in the front office? So I do see them pulling it off, kind of like how they interview guys for like the offensive coordinator position just to hire them as like the wide receivers coach. That's something that could happen as far as like the front office's build and the way they build it up. So yeah, I do think Wolf has earned it. Long story short.
Yeah, he's someone who's been around football his whole life. Obviously, he has a big family history. Elliot Wolf does in football. When he went on to talk on Adam Schefter's podcast, he was kind of saying like he was in those draft rooms, right, when the Packers were drafting in 99 and 2000. So he's been around football his whole life. And it's hard to judge a draft before these guys actually step on the field, right? But he made all the right decisions. You got the quarterback at 3. You got two receivers. You got a tackle. You weaponize the offense, like you said, and that's what he said going into this offseason. You have to weaponize the offense, and that's what he did. So it's going to be interesting to see how he kind of manages in-season stuff now. Obviously, with the trade deadline and everything that kind of correlates with in-season, we'll kind of add a ghosting period or a resting period, I want to say right now. Obviously, minicamp gets underway this weekend, but I mean, OTAs, besides that, there's really not a lot happening, except some veterans are going to start being signed. Stephon Gilmore is someone who I'm going to keep my eye on, someone who he's getting old, but someone who could really be beneficial for the Patriots to have right now.
Yeah, I'm going to jump back to what Carlos said just a moment ago with the possibility that the Patriots are interviewing these candidates not with the intention of having them be the executive vice president of football operations, but rather than being placed in some sort of other role. When Adam Schefter reported that the Patriots would be interviewing Brandon Hunt, he reported it as it was an interview for the lead personnel job, which would be the executive vice president of football operations. I'm just going to call it general manager because that's what it is. But that would basically be the general manager. But then when he reported it for Samir Suleiman, I apologize if I mispronounced that, but when he reported that interview, he just said it was for a football executive job, not the lead job. So was that intentional, or was that just a little just nothing major? I don't know. It could have been very purposeful, or it might not have been. But I do think that it is something to keep in mind, because there's a good possibility that even though the job is pretty much Elliot Wolf's, more than likely, these other interviewees may still be brought in some other capacity. It's also important to note, and I forget who pointed this out, but I did see it on my timeline, that both Hunt and Suleiman worked together. I believe it was at Pittsburgh, but they did cross paths at some point in their respective careers. So potential chemistry there, and bringing them both in in a different role is definitely on the table in my mind.
Yeah, definitely. So I don't know, if it's gonna happen. Like, I honestly, I can't remember the one guy that interviewed. I think it was like twice that they brought him in twice as like a cornerbacks coach early in the offseason. I don't remember his name, but I'm pretty sure he went to either the Steelers or the Eagles. But the reason I'm saying that is they could be interviewing these guys. It could go really well, but in the very end, they make the decision of where they want to go. So we'll see if that happens, but they are definitely two names. They're the two reported names, but they're definitely two names to keep in mind in case they do get hired for a different position.
Yeah, and it's also for everyone saying like, why is this happening now? Why is this happening after the draft? Owners like to structure these contracts so they expire this time of year. So this isn't just the Patriots, right? You see, there's some other teams that are also looking at a football operations guy, a GM, around this time of year. This is kind of when these things happen.
Just to bring up a little question, would you guys fully commit to Elliot Wolf as the executive vice president?
Yeah, I would.
I haven't seen why not, right? He's someone who, you gave Matt Rowe a chance, and he didn't really do that well, right? You gave him that offseason. He was kind of basically running things with Belichick. Both of them. And Elliot Wolf was kind of the one, that's stood by and kind of let it happen. But now you give him the chance. He's kind of done everything right. He went through the draft, got all those offensive players, right? Got KJ Osborne from the Vikings, that was going to be a really underrated signing. I'm saying it right here. And I really, really like him. And you've been kind of building your team for success. I'm not saying this is a playoff team. It's far from it. But if Drake May can turn this team, can kind of emulate CJ Stroud's game, just his success, then Elliot Wolf has that's the blueprint, right? Getting that rookie quarterback, building around him. Suddenly you have a playoff team, kind of like what they did with Nick Casario? Did in Houston.
Yeah. I agree completely. And Ben, like you said, and like Carlos had said earlier, Elliot Wolf has done pretty much everything that he promised to do. And we know it's not going to be a 1-year rebuild. The Patriots would not be, or I guess would not have been, a 4-13 team if all it's going to take is 1 year. But if you commit to Elliot Wolf, like I think the Patriots will do, and like we collectively agreed they should do, I do think the future is bright there, and a rebuild can be successful with him. Hopefully he keeps it up. You never know. And we could even look back on this and in a year say, oh, this was a bad take. The players he drafted didn't pan out, or the free agency sign didn't pan out. But whatever it may be, I think so far he has done exactly what you want him to do. Moving on now to the Patriots rookie minicamp. Just going to go over some names to watch, some of our predictions, takeaways from, I guess, what we should be watching, and everything like that. So, rookie minicamp is going to be this weekend, and all the Patriots rookies, the drafted ones, undrafted, and also unsigned free agents who can go if they got an invite, participate, hopefully impress the coaches and earn a contract. They will all be there, all working out, everything like that. So, what do you guys think that Patriots fans should be watching for this mini camp?
I think the main thing is just that the main difference compared to the past couple of years is that there's gonna be reporters there on Saturday. So I think that's gonna give us a little firsthand look as far as this guy's keeping up the most in conditioning. If they do watch that, but this guy's keeping up the most in conditioning. This guy looks faster than everybody on the field. This guy made a crazy catch or stuff like that. that's something that we could definitely be on the lookout for. Who knows if that's a predictor, but it is going to be something that's very different, and it could be helpful in the long run. Like, just to kind of skip ahead, one guy that I really really like is Mikey Victor. I believe that's his name. The Alabama State corner that they signed as a UDFA. It's not announced yet, but it was reported that they did sign him. I do think that he's someone that could really look good in shorts and a t-shirt in minicamp. So if they say like, oh, he looks faster than everybody else, he's reportedly 6'3", 6'2", so he looks bigger than everybody else. He looks stronger than everybody else. That's a name I would watch, and like I said, with the reporters there, it could honestly hype up him as a prospect even more. So that's my one guy that I'd look out for.
Absolutely. Some kind of takeaways, predictions for this mini camp here. First, this is kind of a time for these players to be given all this material at once. Dan Orlovsky put out a really, really good video, I think it was yesterday, of kind of what happens at these mini camps. And they just give these players the whole playbook, all the cadences, all the formations, all the tendencies, everything. And they basically have to know it, right? And the hope is if they get signed to the team or when they go back to the mandatory camp in 2 weeks from now, they're better than they were coming into this rookie camp. But kind of looking at the players who will be participating, there's not a lot of Power 5 guys, right? There's only 3 or 4 I count. This is kind of a time for these smaller D1 schools, D3 schools, some D2 schools to shine, right? These players were not drafted, but they have like everything. They have a chip on their shoulder. They want to impress. And this is a time for them to show that they have what it takes to play at the NFL. So looking at this list again, the Patriots are bringing in 2 kickers, which I find that's the one thing right now that I'm looking at that's wow. Like, Chad Ryland, obviously they just signed a veteran, but it was Joey Sly, right? So Sly and Ryland, those are 2 players, but then you also have these 2 players coming in. I wouldn't be surprised if one of them gets signed, and then you kind of have a 3-way competition. Chad Ryland's spot is definitely not safe. So.
Yeah, I agree. And going back to the idea of what to watch in this mini camp, what to just keep an eye on, it's obviously not full contact. You're not getting players in pads, blocking each other and hitting, tackling, whatever it may be. Like Carlos said, it's shorts and t-shirts. But you still do want to see how these rookies are working with coaches, how they're being coached, what specifically they're working on. And in the case of Drake May specifically, I think it is going to be interesting to see who is working with him. Is it going to just be T.C. McCartney? Is it going to just be T.C. McCartney and Alex Van Pelt? Is Ben McAdoo going to be involved in that? There are a lot of new coaches on this coaching staff. It is a pretty large staff compared to other teams in the league, which is unusual for the Patriots. In the old regime, they typically had a smaller coaching staff compared to other teams. But it will be interesting to see. Does Drake May work with Coach X, Y, Z, and whoever else, or is it just like this one coach or these 2 coaches? I would definitely keep an eye on that, and that's going to potentially be a pretty big storyline for when reporters are able to enter minicamp this coming Saturday.
Yeah, that's very, very true. I also think that it'll be interesting to see who Drake May is working with as far as like maybe they only have him practicing with the receivers they drafted, or maybe I'm pretty sure they signed 1 UDFA receiver. I might be wrong, but
might have. I'd have to
if not, it's a minicamp invite that they brought in a couple of receivers. So who knows? Maybe Joe Milton's only throwing to them because now they have 2 rookie quarterbacks that will be present at minicamp. So just seeing if they divvy up who they throw to, that will be interesting too. I kind of doubt it. I feel like that's kind of giving away too much to the reporters if they get to see like, oh, we're giving him like all of the higher end rookies or things like that. I do think that they'll be a little bit smarter than that. But one thing I do want to preface for everyone before they read all the reports and stuff. Um, as far as the UDFA's, it's not always a guarantee that they make it through rookie minicamp. I'm pretty sure. I don't know if you guys remember Devin Hafford. I don't know if you remember that name, but I can't remember the college he went to, but he went to a small university. They signed him as a UDFA. He was a corner, and I think he was like 6'2", like 190, 200. Everyone was really excited, like, oh, like this is our next UDFA guy. Like, I remember I was even excited. He got cut like after the first or second day of rookie minicamp.
Brutal.
So that's just something that can happen. I don't know if you remember De'Ara King, that he was going to transition to wide receiver. Same thing happened to him. I think he got cut after the first or second day of rookie minicamp. It might have been something else in the summer, a different workout, but these guys aren't guaranteed a spot. They could get cut right away. You mentioned Dan Orlovsky put something out about rookie minicamp. I also put out the clip of Jonathan Jones talking about it, and he was an undrafted free agent. He himself even said, like, there's like very little football played in it. It's like mostly them trying to kill you and see how much you can endure. And if you come back on a Saturday or on the second day, pretty much. So I'm not putting anything out there. I don't know if that was the case with like Devin Hafford and De'Ara King, but if you see some guys that are on the list that they're there on Friday, but they're not there on Saturday, there's a good indication that maybe they couldn't, keep up, or it just wasn't, meant for them. So that is something to remember, even for the UDFAs.
Yeah, and it is also important to keep in mind, with that being said, that the Patriots only have, I think, one roster spot open, maybe two.
Yeah, they have 89 players right now.
Yeah, so not a lot of roster space open for the Patriots. If they see something out of two, because what is there, probably almost 20 mini camp invites of
It's
players
21, yeah.
21, yeah. So if they see something out of two of the 21 mini camp invites, someone's getting the boot, and that might be an undrafted rookie, or that might be a veteran. You never know, but I'm really glad you brought that up, because that is something to keep in mind. Like, jobs, even though it's early on, can be won and lost this weekend.
Yeah, and you saw that Nathan Work was released by the team just a couple of days ago, a quarterback. That's kind of giving some people the idea that Joe Milton has a good chance of making the roster, or at least sticking around on the practice squad. Before we kind of move on to the next segment, it's going to be, I want to preface a little that these guys, when roster cutdowns actually happen and they get released, any team is free to sign them, right? Practice squads don't get developed until later in that week. So if the Patriots decide they want to keep Joe Milton on the practice squad, but they release him from the roster, he can sign with any other team, right? And then there goes your 6th round draft pick, your 7th round draft pick. So they're definitely on the line right now. And kind of looking at the depth chart, there's 11 receivers and 11 defensive backs. The Patriots usually take 5 or 6 receivers and 5 or 6 defensive backs. So that's 10 players right there, just by those two position groups, who are gonna get the boot this summer.
Yeah, you even brought it up, Ben. I think it was when you were speaking to Sophie Weller, that some of these like top 30 visits too, like they might bring them in later on and put him on the practice squad. Same thing with the minicamp invites. Like, who knows if some of these guys, they really impress them, but they just can't put them on the roster. In the future, who knows? Like, I forgot who you used as an example, but that could very well happen with any of these invitees. So just keep that in mind.
It's true. I'm going to move. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I think we have the same idea. Move on a little bit.
Yeah. All right. So okay. I'm going to move us on right here to, if it'll load, there we go. Patriots training camp roster battles. It is still early on. The roster is not completely full. Players will be cut before training camp. Players will be signed before training camp. But there is still a lot of position battles to take a look at. Really, there's some at every position. I'm going to start us off kind of basic because you guys were just talking about it. The battle for QB3. We know that it's going to be either Drake May or Jacoby Brissett as QB1, and the other will be QB2. That's a battle too. But we know they're both going to make the team. If Zappy looks good in training camp, do you give him the nod over your 6th-round draft pick with Joe Milton? Or do you still decide, I agree, Ben, I see you shaking your head. I think you keep Joe Milton no matter what over Zappy. But if Zappy looks good, do you decide to keep him instead of Milton? Or what's going to happen there? So I'm going to start us off with that one. I think that is a battle to watch. Joe Milton versus Bailey Zappe, which is kind of funny to say, but that's one to keep in mind because that's not a battle for, QB2 versus QB3, which is either way a roster spot. It's a battle of roster spot versus no roster spot. So that's what I find interesting about the potential duel right there.
Yeah, Ben, you wanna take this first?
Yeah. So we can just go, I guess, position group. I think we should just go position group by position group. So we'll start with the quarterbacks right now. Drake May, Jacoby Brissett. Whoever looks the best, I'm leaning Jacoby Brissett because if you are not competing for the playoffs this year, and you are not, obviously they're going to try to win the division. Obviously they're going to try to win the Super Bowl. But realistically, if you do not have the talent to win a Super Bowl or win the division, why put Drake May out there week 1? Why not at least let him develop into the bye week? The schedule is going to get released next week. It's going to be really interesting to see when the bye week actually happens. It could be as early as week 5. I don't think Drake May should start in week 5. But if the bye week is week, 11 and the Patriots are, a 500 team, or even below, then I think Drake May should get a chance at the end of the season. It's a good point between Bailey Zappe and Joe Milton. I'm leaning Milton just because Bailey Zappe got cut last summer and no one else was interested, There's a couple of teams that were like, hey, come, we'll put you on a practice squad. But ultimately, he stayed with the Patriots. Now, is that going to be the same this time of year? I don't know. He obviously, probably not just because he started a bunch of games last season, and he's not a starting level quarterback in the NFL, but he is definitely a good backup. He is a good backup to have. It's just the upside with Joe Milton you can't look past, and you spent a draft pick on him, right? And he's someone who can develop into someone I think that can be really, really good. He said he didn't really want to be playing tight end, kind of not like the Taysom Hill type. But if he ever changes his mind, he can definitely be a dual threat quarterback, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even going to get into the whole Drake May, Jacoby Brissett, who starts and everything. I feel like that's a whole other rabbit hole that we could talk about it for like 30 minutes or make a whole, podcast episode dedicated to it. But so I'll just go off of what Ben said. As far as like the Bailey Zappe and Joe Milton competition, I genuinely think that neither one could make the roster. That's like my personal take on it. I honestly think Bailey Zappe has a good chance at making it only because he is an experienced quarterback. Like this is his 3rd year. I know people hate him, but he does have experience under his belt. A lot of people say Joe Milton, his arm will wow you, but his game won't, right? So who knows if Bailey Zappe outperforms him? Obviously, like I said, the arm talent might be different, but what if Bailey Zappe is in a practice period and he goes like 10 for 10, and then Joe Milton goes out there and he's hitting trash cans on the sideline by accident, So who knows how that might go? I will say though, the new rule that they implemented with the emergency QB, they did update it to the practice squad QB being able to be elevated for game day and not count as one of the 47 that they have to count during game day. So I do think that Bailey Zappe or Joe Milton could be kept on the practice squad and just used as an emergency QB, so they don't have to waste the roster spot on carrying 3 QBs. So that could happen. Who knows? But I will, like I said, I will say I do think that there is a chance that both might not make the roster.
Yeah. I'm also gonna move us while we're on the topic of quarterbacks. I'm gonna move us to a question from the comments. From Ken, lagging a little bit here, but from Ken, asking about if we think Joe Milton will up his stock in training camp in the preseason of QB2 or 3. I'm going to start us off here. QB3, probably. I think that is the most likely scenario. QB2, there's not a chance.
Yeah, I agree. It's like as straightforward as that. I don't think there's any chance he can get up to QB2 on the depth chart.
Yeah, we kind of just talked about that. No chance at all.
Yeah. I did want to bring that up. I didn't want it to go completely ignored, but yeah, I think there's pretty much no chance that he can get all the way up to QB2 because you have Jacoby Brissett and you have Drake May for a reason. But now we're going to go position by position. Wide receivers. Do either of you want to start, or because I don't want to take all of the first dibs on it, but I do have some if you don't want to start.
Carlos?
I was gonna say Ben and I have been going first, so whoever wants to go.
I'm really excited by this, right? Because you have a lot of good players for your receivers. I think the locks. I'll start with the locks. I think KJ Osborne is a lock to make the roster. I think Demario Douglas a lock to make the roster. I think Javon Baker a lock to make the roster. I think Jalen Polk is a lock to make the roster. That is 4. Those are my locks. Okay. If Kendrick Bourne is healthy, he's going to be a lock to make the roster. So that's 5. So those are 5 players off of that. The Patriots typically take 6 receivers. That means there's 1 roster spot left for Tyquan Thornton, Kayshon Boutte, and Jalen Reagor. Now, Jalen Reagor offers a special teams value with Marcus Jones returning. I don't know how much more value he can bring. So that means between Tyquan Thornton, Jalen Reagor, and Juju Smith-Schuster, there's 1 roster spot. Of course, you have TJ Luther and Quan Baker, but I see those more as practice squad players at the moment. The one guy I'm looking at right now that's not here, that I don't know the last time I haven't seen him on the Patriots roster, is Trey Nixon. Every summer I see Trey Nixon, and I'm like, and he's always like turning heads at camp. He's always making these ridiculous catches. No Trey Nixon this summer, so Trey Nixon will not be battling for a roster spot. But I think so those 5 locks, like I said, and I'm gonna put Jalen Reagor on as well. I think Juju Smith-Schuster, if he doesn't get cut, will be traded.
Okay. Yeah, Zach, you could take this one.
All right, I'll take the glory. I have KJ Osborne versus Javon Baker for really, I guess, the majority of snaps at the X position. I think that is a battle to watch just because it's more so a battle for playing time, but it's like somewhat established veteran versus brand new rookie. That's really all I have for that. I just do think that it'll be a fun little battle to watch because those are 2 very talented players who are honestly set up for potential breakout seasons. But if Javon Baker impresses at training camp or if KJ Osborne impresses at training camp, the latter will probably not get many snaps and not really be able to show themselves off to their fullest potential. So really seeing Baker versus Osborne is going to be the first indicator at training camp of who is going to get the majority of the X position snaps and who's going to, I guess, have the big season for the Patriots receiver room.
Yeah, I mean, my guess would be that Baker has the easiest path to starting, in my opinion, just because he has the most like prototypical size and build as far as like an X receiver. I do think KJ Osborne will play a big role, as at least in the beginning of the season when Kendrick Bourne is ramping up more. I think both him and Jalen Polk can play that role. So I think it'll be a battle more so between them two. The one thing I will say though is that Mike Reese even put out a tweet. I believe it was like a little less than a month ago, saying that KJ Osborne was turning heads at voluntary minicamp, and that people were really impressed with how he was performing. So if Mike Reese is putting that out, I'm going to believe it as the truth. But not only that, it's also like, okay, if that's the case, then he's building a strong case for himself early on before training camp even starts. Before the rookies were there. So kind of just transitioning over to what Ben said, that whole very end, that sixth wide receiver spot is going to be like the storyline as far as like the wide receiver group, in my opinion. Right now, I personally have Tyquan making it. That's my guess, but that's only because he's younger. He has he has 2 years left on his contract, and I do think that Van Pelt can do something with his skill set. So that's my prediction.
Yeah. Hopefully, like, he's someone who can get open, right? He's definitely fast. If he can just, get a little more separation off the line of scrimmage, I think he can definitely turn it around this year, and of course stay healthy. Moving on, we got running backs next that will hit. Obviously, a lock is going to be Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson. Those two are locks. Sometimes they're going to carry a third running back on the roster, whether that be Kevin Harris, Keyshawn Vaughn. They can definitely sign a veteran. There's some more veteran running backs available. But those are kind of your options. Of course, you have Deshaun Fenwick as well. I was a little surprised they didn't draft a running back in this class. I thought they would. But you basically have one more spot available for the running backs.
Yeah, and don't forget about JaMychal Hasty too. I do think that as far as like the production in the league, from their lower end depth chart, I do think he's proven the most out of all of those running backs. But I wouldn't. It's tough because they carried 2 last year. Obviously, it's a different staff and everything, but I would be surprised if they didn't carry 3. 3 is obviously the minimum in my mind. They did also invite Terrell Jennings, which is Demario Douglas's child. I don't know if it's his childhood friend or if they just know each other from growing up around the same area, but he went to Florida A&M. He looks pretty good too. So they have some young guys that are coming in for camp tomorrow and Saturday. So we'll see if any of those guys stick around and maybe they make a push for a roster spot as well.
Yeah, and I just honing in on the training camp battle aspect of it. It'll probably be the battle for the number 3 running back for that roster spot between, most likely in my mind, it's Kevin Harris versus Deshaun Fenwick versus also potentially another rookie who might be brought in following minicamp. But yeah, I don't see the veterans making it with Keyshawn Vaughn and JaMychal Hasty, but there is a chance. There's definitely a path for them. I just think that it is more likely to be one of the younger guys, and those are the 2, or I guess potentially 3, that I would be watching the most.
Yeah, so I think running backs and tight ends are basically kind of set, definitely with the top 2. Tight ends, you have, of course, Hunter Henry, who just signed an extension, and then
He froze?
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yep, you're back.
My bad about that. I have no idea what just happened. Anyway, you have Hunter Henry, who just signed the extension, and then you have Austin Hooper, right, who just got signed. So those 2 are definitely locks. And then you have Michael Petaway, who I really like. But then you also have Jaheim Bell. And I think he's going to end up being the 3rd tight end right there.
Yeah, I thought you were going to throw a little curveball and say he would be like the 3rd running back because he does have experience in the backfield. So who knows if they do use him like as a kind of like what was his name, Lil Jordan Humphrey, how they used him as a wide receiver / tight end. I'm pretty sure he was their 3rd tight end technically, like on the depth chart. He was like their last wide receiver on the depth chart and also their last tight end on the depth chart, and they used him in both roles. So who knows if maybe they viewed Jaheim Bell as that. Maybe they view him as the last tight end on the depth chart, but also the last running back on the depth chart.
Yeah, and potentially that even leaves a path for, and I don't see it this way, but there is a chance. Maybe it's only Ramondre and Antonio Gibson, and then you rotate in Jaheim Bell somehow. You figure that out, and you retain Kevin Harris, Deshaun Fenwick, Hasty, or now I'm blanking on who the last one is, but you retain a few of those guys on the practice squad, bring them up whenever needed. But yeah, maybe that's how they run it. We obviously won't know for a while. But that is actually an interesting point bringing that up because Jaheim Bell has that versatility.
Really quick, how many offensive linemen do you think are on the Patriots right now total? Just throw out a number.
22.
We're including UDFAs.
No UDFA.
Oh, just on the roster.
Put on the 89-man roster, I guess. Out of the 89 players.
I'm gonna say 16.
I'm going 22.
That's really close. 17 is the correct answer. But that is 17 players right now who are on the O-line, right? They usually take 9 or 10. So it's going to be a lot of grit and roster battles between everyone. Looking at it right now, Hayden Wallace, Layden Robinson, early draft picks, they're on the team. David Andrews on the team, that's 3. Michael Wenu on the team, that's 4. I want to say Calvin Anderson on the team, that's 5. And Oguafor on the team, that's 6. So there you have 6 already. Now, for the backup pieces, I really like Antonio Mafi. I think him and City So, I really like both of them. I think they can develop a little more into sufficient backup guards and tackles. But then you're already at 8. So then you have either UDFA or you have Tyron Wheatley, who's good. You have Andrew Stuber. You have Zuri Henry, who was just signed. So there's a bunch of good options. I don't know how much Vidarian Lowe is going to be on this team. I think he gets cut pretty soon. But besides that, there's a bunch of good options.
I'm personally not that this is that big of a deal. Again, it's a depth piece, but I'm a bigger fan of Jake Andrews than I am of Mafi. I think Andrews gets you a lot more versatility there. He can play guard or he can play center, whereas Mafi is more so a true guard. And Andrews also, people don't really remember this, but Andrews got the nod at the end of the year against the Jets for the starting job. Mafi got benched for Jake Andrews because Jake Andrews had outperformed him when he got a few snaps the week before. And Andrews had a really solid game against the Jets too. So I do think Jake Andrews has been overlooked a lot throughout the last few months because I do think that although he didn't play much, when he did get the opportunity, he looked really solid, and he has more positional versatility than most of their interior linemen who are fighting for a spot. He has more than Mafi and then Cole Strange. So I would, Ben is gone now. I would give him the nod over Mafi, but it also does depend on how everything looks during training camp, of course.
Yeah. If I had to rank the 3 O-linemen that were drafted last year, as far as their safety or which ones I think are going to make the roster, I would put it City So at the top. Then I would put Jake Andrews, and then I'd put Mafi.
I agree.
And like you said, it's mostly because of the versatility. Jake Andrews played center and left guard last year. Well, he played left guard in game, but he came in as a center, but they played him at left guard. I'm assuming he could also play right guard if that's the case. But because of that, I do think that Mafi is, 1 foot in, 1 foot out right now. That's just my prediction. I also think Nick Leverett makes it a little bit tougher. He is the veteran. He has been, I personally think, this is my guess, I think he has been taking the the reps instead of Cole Strange, since Cole Strange can't participate in voluntary minicamp right now. But because of that, I do think Cole Strange isn't a lock. I don't think that he's it's like a given that he's going to be on the roster next year. And another guess or prediction I have is that Charles Turner, the UDFA from LSU, I think he will make the roster.
Zach, I think he's the one who caught the touchdown, right, at the Senior Bowl when the offensive line was throwing each other touchdowns. I think he was the one who, like, and then he, like, grittied, you know?
Yeah. I mean, they were doing that for, like, 15 minutes straight of just, like, D linemen and O linemen running fades and throwing up passes to them. But, yeah, now that you say that, I remember he had, like, his clip specifically went viral because I think the celebration.
Yeah.
But talking about him as a player, I do think that was a really good signing. I don't know if he makes the roster just because, like we've said, there is so little room there. Like it is such a crowded room. But if the Patriots think they can get him on the practice squad, which he went undrafted, so more than likely they could, that would be like ideal because he really does have the potential to be a solid lineman in the league.
Yeah, especially the way his O-line coach talks about him too. Brad Davis, the LSU O-line coach, he really, really talked him up. And on top of that, he did play some snaps at fullback while he was at LSU. And if you don't know, in Alex Van Pelt's offense while he was with the Browns, their center, Nick Harris, he was their backup center. He also played some snaps at fullback. They utilized him at both center and fullback. So maybe that's the versatility they like with Charles Turner. Maybe he could do that when he gets to the NFL, but obviously he has to make the roster first.
So we're running a little short on time right here. So we're going to kind of skip just a few position groups and go to the defensive backs, which I think is the position group to watch the most. There's a ton happening in this right now. And there's not a lot of locks. You have Gonzo, you have Jonathan Jones. I think Jonathan Jones, like, he's like a partial lock. Like, I think he makes the team, obviously, but there's a lot of young guys, and something's going to have to give, right? Carlos, up to you first. Defensive backs, who's in, who's out?
See, like you said, I completely agree. I think that is like the most overlooked position battle heading into training camp, just in the offseason in general. I will say the ones that I do think have like some name recognition, but probably won't make the team. It's like a Marco Wilson. I'm pretty sure they claimed off waivers from Arizona last season. I don't even think he played much when he was I think he was there for like 2 games towards the end of the season. I don't think he played much. Sean Wade, I do think that his time is up. He was a game day inactive legend over here, but I do think his time's up. And then those are the two that I would say, if we're going full defensive backs, not just cornerbacks, I think like a Jalen Hawkins, who they just signed, I don't think he's a lock. Someone like that, Joshua Bledsoe too. He's been on the practice squad on the 53-man. Those are just a couple. If I had to name a few that I don't think that they're, it's a given that they're going to be on the roster.
Yeah, and for again going to the battle to watch, this is a lot of names, but Alex Austin versus Isaiah Bolden, got the picture down there somewhere. That's not Juju, that's Isaiah Bolden. But Alex Austin, Isaiah Bolden, like you had said, Marco Wilson, I don't think he makes it, but still one to watch. Marcellus Dial, and I'm probably blanking on a bunch of names. There was 2 more I had in mind, but all of those types of guys who are on the younger side and are probably going to be potentially battling for like the last cornerback spot or the second to last cornerback spot. There's not a whole lot of space there, kind of similar to the offensive line. Like it's a pretty crowded room, and there's a lot of players who are going to get cut who maybe deserved a spot. So really the biggest one is going to be Alex Austin versus Isaiah Bolden in my mind, but there is probably 3 more guys who are like in that conversation to potentially make the roster.
I think Alex Austin makes it just because he had such a great end of year last season. I think Marcus Jones is also someone who is going to make it. But like you guys have been saying, like I don't want to be a broken record here, but this is a fun position group to watch. And especially because they're going against, in my opinion, the second best position group to watch, the wide receivers. So there's definitely going to be some fun one-on-ones happening. Zach, I know you'll be at training camp. I'm going to try to make it to training camp for one. Carlos, you would definitely be watching training camp. But it should be very fun to watch.
Yeah. So with that, I think the cornerbacks are going to be our last one for today that we just went over. Carlos, thank you very much for coming on, especially on such short notice. Thanks for joining us for this episode. Let everyone know where they can find you on social media.
Yeah, everyone could find me at LosTalksPats. But I do want to say thank you guys for having me on. This is fun. This is my second time on, and the more and more we get comfortable with each other as like a trio, the more fun it is too. So like I said, I appreciate you guys having me on. Also, everyone, make sure you follow Pats Nation Nightly on Twitter or X. But yeah, and their Instagram. And I just realized you guys go live on YouTube as well. So you guys check that out.
Look at this. Look at this.
We didn't pay him to say this, by the way.
Yeah, we did not. Well,
zero.
We just wanted to say, and I'll kind of speak on behalf of Zach here too. We don't say this to all of our guests, but Carlos is fantastic to talk with, but he's also such a great follower on Twitter. He gives all the credit where it's due. He has the best content. If you are Patriots fans, you can kind of find all the rumors, everything you need in one place, and that is his Twitter feed. So definitely give him a follow over there. And definitely follow Patriots Nation Nightly, or Pats Nation, one more time, Pats Nation Night on X, and Pats Nation Nightly on Instagram. And we will be live at some point next week. Don't know when. We will announce that soon. Tomorrow there will be no show. Mr. Ventola over here has his prom, so there'll be no show tomorrow.
Have to
Thank you, Ken.
Carlos love. But yeah, again, Carlos, thank you for coming on. To the 232 of you listening, that's a big number. Thank you for tuning in, taking some time out of your Thursday night to listen to us. And yeah, that's all we got for tonight. So thank you all for tuning in.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you, guys.